You want to be a hero and the man of her dreams.
I'm gonna tell you about a woman whose heart is sunshine, whose body burned hot. I'm gonna tell you about a woman who's cold as tundra with some frozen eyes. I can tell by the way she moves.
Welcome to the C-Note Show, gentlemen, brought to you by Great Men Move Mountains. It's Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. I always have to look, what day is today? Because some of us are running on fumes. We were discussing that before the show, like whether you're up at 5 a.m. in New Zealand or, let's see, 7 p.m. in Spain, right? Or it's noon for Kent in Minnesota, where I'm from. And it's 11 a.m. here in Mountain in Colorado, where we shoot the show every day, Monday through Friday. We love that you're here. You're here because you're a man that wants to understand how to be a hero in your own life, and you want to know how to be the man of her dreams. And we'll just start off with some hyperbole like that, Cynthia. You want to be a hero and the man of her dreams. What the fuck does that mean? That means that you want to know what the three forms of confidence are, behaviorally, emotionally, and spiritually. And you want to have the tools to dive back out of the ocean, the depths of the drowning that you feel potentially in your relationship or your separation, or your she says she wants space, or I love you but I'm not in love with you, or your divorce, or you want to learn how to kick ass in the next relationship in your life. Any place that you're in there, you're a man that wants the tribe of these men here. You want to be in our private Facebook group to bring the shit to the men. And you've read a book that says, take the stuff to the men, learn this around a men's group. This is our men's group that we do every single day. And Cynthia is a professional coach like myself. She's also my fiance, and she's the only woman allowed on this show for her professional perspective, her professional female feminine perspective. So thank you for being here, Cynthia.
Thank you for having me, and I am deeply honored to be here every day. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. So our theme of this week is, who am I really? Who am I really through all this? Who was I? Who am I now? And who am I becoming? We are the same man we were yesterday, but now we're starting to rise into being a man that's more grounded, more centered, more understanding. We fucking pull the curtain back and we know what's behind there when we've spent the rest of our previous life looking forward, you know, going to college, working 50, 60, 70 plus hours a week, kicking ass in the world. And then we stop and turn around and holy shit, our life isn't what we thought it was going to be. And maybe we've been thrown out the curtain into the back alley by the bouncer of life, and our face is smashed into the brick wall across the alley, and we're laying bleeding on the ground. And that's why we're here. We're here for the other men that can reach down and help pick us up. Or we can hold that Spartan shield up and form a phalanx with the other men in this tribe and in our world here. So we're so happy for you guys to be here today. Let me jump over to our opening scenario of the day. And then I found some a new comedy channel. I think it's called College Humor. And they have a whole bunch of sketch comedy. I've got a really cool one today called If Google Was a Guy. If Google was an actual person. So that's some comedy we're going to share today. We've got some clips of Seth Godin, who is one of my favorite speakers and authors and marketers. And we've got another kick-ass motivational type speech from Robert Downey Jr. It's like a compilation video I've got for us today too. So here we share our daily work. Here we do our daily work as men. Our theme of this week is, who am I really? We're talking about boundaries. We're highlighting the book Hold On to Your Nuts by Wayne Levine. Also values, which is our nuts by Wayne Levine as well. Our non-negotiable, unalterable terms, our nuts. And we're learning how to call out the elephant and then pet the elephant. We're petting the elephant, we're eating pie. That's what we're doing this week, Cynthia. We're petting the elephant and we're eating pie. And if you don't know what the hell we're talking about, wait, because we're gonna share some of Cynthia's pie later on in a good way. Of course it's in a good way, Jeff, of course. And we as men, we want to know how to give our gift and how to not wait to do that. We want to give our masculine gift. And if we don't know what that means, we're going to talk more about that on the show today. And that's what the book Hold On to Your Nuts dives into as well. So let me start off with a post from the forum. And the gentleman who posted this is on here today, and he said that he'd love to come on and give his thoughts, and I can share who this is. He says, well, it's official. Another lengthy conversation that took up the majority of my afternoon. I want to ask about that, first of all. You know, this conversation has taken quite a long time. So I want to ask about that. Another session of listening to how much she wants to live her life, have independence, etc. My values have not changed. Everything in this house, including her, has been a priority for me. I'm a family man first. I'm okay setting my needs aside for the betterment of others and the group. I told her I still want this. I still want her. And she said, I'm done. Honestly, I've known my truths for a while. She's disconnected. She wants to feel free. She doesn't feel heard. She has said, around me is the only place she can't be herself. Not once during the separation has she shed positive light on us being together. In a way, I've been preparing for this for some time now. I've tried getting rid of false hope for reconciliation. So that's another thing I want to ask about as well. How you've been preparing for this and your thoughts on hope and for reconciliation, right? And what false hope means. Good news. So here's where the tide turns. Good news, I'm not at rock bottom. I was there 2.5 years ago when I discovered her affair. I was at rock bottom when I allowed myself to take all the blame for the relationship back then. Well, I know how that goes. I've been there. I was at rock bottom when I used her and the relationship as a crutch and had the crutch crumble beneath me. I tried getting rid of the crutch over the past 5 months, living my life, doing what I want to do, chasing my desires. Creating space has made me realize that I have neglected the relationship at times, yes. 100% I own my shit. Love that. But it's also made me realize that my feelings, thoughts, and desires are important, and I've downplayed my own importance for way too long. I'm lovable, I'm worthy, I'll be okay, smiley face. I'm grateful for the men in this group. Thanks, brothers. Absolutely. I love that. I love how he jumps to, grateful for the men in this group, and this is where he's been doing the work. He's been doing the work on the C-Note show since its inception. It's been going on 9 months now, and so I'd love for this gentleman to come on, and if you don't mind right now, just give us 30 seconds of how you're feeling right this moment. Right? I want to cut this up a bit. So how are you feeling right this moment today, being on the show here with the guys? How you feeling?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Hearing that read back to me, I just got a little emotional. Knowing the finality of it, I guess, is the feeling that's kind of overcoming me right now. It's nothing that I ever wanted, nothing I ever asked for, and this is growth, I think, and taking a step forward. It's not easy, but it's where I'm at.
Yeah, Kent, I totally know what you're saying. I was in that spot too, and it's nothing that I asked for either, right? And that's why we're here. This is when I found Steve Horseman and Good Guys to Great Men in 2015 myself, and all I could do was fucking move my feet to get to that men's group in September of 2015. I didn't know which way was up. I've said before, I felt like I was in free fall, in purgatory myself, Kent, and finding this. I'm not sure if you found other men's groups. I want to come back in a minute. I'm not sure if you found other men and things to talk to prior to this show 9 weeks ago. I hope so. But I had not prior to finding my local men's group. And it was a lifesaver as far as my belief in myself and knowing which way was up, because I didn't know which way was up at the time. And so I found this a couple months ago. I want to offer you, this is my certificate for Kent this morning, of certificate of not losing your shit.
Yeah.
And it says, congratulations. This is to certify that you had it up to here and you took it like a boss. I don't know, whatever. Effective this day, you are highly commended for having demonstrated the ability to maintain the characteristics of a person who is still moderately sane, despite all invitations into total raging and drooling insanity. That's a certificate for not losing your shit. That's for you today, Kent.
Much appreciated.
Good, a little comedy, and then we'll get out. So I want to show this 2-minute clip of if Google was a guy, and then I want to come back to a couple pieces of this post and get some feedback from Cynthia, our feminine perspective. So if Google was a guy, it would look like this.
Next. Hello there.
Is today tomorrow New Zealand?
Yes.
Foot same length Europe?
What?
Inch same length Europe.
Gmail.com.
Oh, God.
What is Bitcoin?
Butthole. Gross, fat, butthole, dick, poop.
Is that what kids are into these days?
Are your parents home?
Miss Pippi.
You mean Mississippi? Hey, I'm not a dictionary.
My grandson Nathan.
Song that goes meow 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 meow.
Girls college.
Let's see.
College girls. Nude.
Really?
Patrick Castles. Pat Castles. Pat Castles funny.
Bitcoin market value.
Weed Amount Legal NYC.
Patrick Castle's funny writer, college humor.
Are you gonna do this all day?
What is Prime Meridian?
Hedgehog cute.
Do you mean hedgehog?
Hedgehog cute.
God, do you mean
Hedgehog's cute.
Adderall Max Dose.
Yeah.
Adderall Max Dose, 165-pound man.
Okay.
Adderall Max Dose, 165-pound man, 20 years old. Adderall overdose signs.
Download Firefox.
Ever heard of Chrome?
How to buy Bitcoin.
Titanic drawing. Titanic movie drawing. Titanic movie drawing scene. Kate Winslet tits.
Round 2.
Facebook.com, my grandson Nathan.
No.
Dexter based on real.
Free hamster.
Unbuy Bitcoin.
Boston bomber.
It's real tragedy.
Cute one.
Oh, fucking shit.
So, is like Kate Winslet tits. Let me just jump right to it. Gross, hairy, disgusting butthole. I think Kent looked at that one this morning. I don't know. All right, I want to jump back in. I have a couple quick questions, right? So let's start off with, we're talking today specifically about boundaries. We're going to get into the third piece of the pie, Cynthia's third piece of the pie, which is about purpose in life, okay? And so our theme this week is, who am I really? So really, I want to ask you about values and boundaries. And let's start off with, real quick, when you said, we had another lengthy conversation that took up the majority of my afternoon. And so specifically what I'm interested in, Kent, is if you look back, have you had a kind of value? Did you have an intention or a container around that conversation when you had it, right? Or do you feel, and I'll just throw some stuff out, right? Do you feel like you were pulled into something and you kind of just, it was a cascade of just, stuff? Or what did it feel like when you had that conversation yesterday, kind of start, middle, and end, just generally, please?
Yesterday's conversation was very similar to several of them we've had over the last probably 3 to 4 weeks. I think I've mentioned on the show before too, I've tried to set some boundaries in asking her to have her stop asking me what's wrong. I mean, I don't feel like I've been a dick. I don't feel like I have been distant. I know that, but I've been trying to create some space and try to, stay focused on what I can focus on and what I can control. But obviously my intentions have not really been toward the relationship. I haven't danced on the staircase. I haven't really been there to work on the relationship. And I understand that. And I've owned that. But, when she constantly comes to me and says, what's wrong? She needs reassured that everything's okay. And that just became very frustrating. And a lot of our conversations started out like yesterday's did. And we kind of got into, her needs and her wants and her desires and all of this. And I, trying to take a page out of your playbook and just, ask the question and then just shut the hell up, which has been effective. It really has, but it's just glaringly obvious that she's made up her mind, and there's not a lot I can do right now. I've been very clear, and it's funny you say values. I have used the word values a few times, and I said, look, this family's still important to me. You're still important to me. I still love you. I still think there's a chance for us, but I just kind of feel like I'm not going to receive that opportunity to kind of, prove myself or better the relationship for both of us.
Got you. And so if I had to guess, would you say I'm close to the mark when she's asking, hey, what's wrong? Are you okay? Is this kind of like a friendship? If she was a roommate, she'd be asking you, are you okay? Is that what what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. And that's, she follows that up a lot with, we'll always, be in each other's lives, and that type of mindset, throughout the conversation yesterday as well. So, but it was frustrating to hear, and the finality of it just, overcame me pretty hard.
Yeah, I totally understand how that goes. So Kent, let me take a step forward, right? So what do you feel is the next step that you would like? Let's just not worry about how to make it happen, but the why for you, and I'll guess, and you add on here, is, well, I want to be centered in my own self. I want to take a healthy step forward, whatever that's going to look like. Right. So what's the next step for you? The why of the next step for you?
For me personally, or I guess I'm not following your question.
Sure. So there's you, there's her, there's the relationship, right? But there's also the family and the kids. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes back to your nuts. What's important to you? Obviously your kids, right? Obviously your own mental, physical health as well, these kind of things. So what is the next step for you? What do you want to do next year regarding the relationship with her and your living situation, right?
I think a big thing for me is continuing my strong effort to better my relationship with my kids and making sure they're okay, because I'm a forward thinker. And, you know, when we had this conversation yesterday evening, I was up half the night thinking about how are we going to present this to the kids and, you know, what that's going to look like, and trying to prepare myself for that now. You know, I've been preparing myself for, I guess, her saying I'm done for several weeks now. And now that that's here, now it's time to prepare myself for, you know, what's next. So haven't really thought about myself a lot. I have been, you know, working out, had a doctor's appointment last week just to check some things out. Things are good. Just a matter of picking myself up and putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, totally. That's great. So starting to work out and take care of yourself, that's huge, right? So I want to honor you for that. And you had said in here as well that you had used the relationship as a crutch and used her as a crutch in the past. So that was a lot like what I was like in 2015 at that point, right? It's like asking her what she wants, waiting for her to say the D word. I've been preparing for her to, you know, and I'm going to be reacting to that basically. And so that's one thing that you're doing here, by the way. You have been for 9 weeks coming to this show, okay, and doing your own work on the show and doing your homework otherwise, and reaching out to the men here, certainly. And hopefully you guys are doing that in the chat, right? Reaching out. And I already saw a bunch of support, Kent, in the chat. You guys are awesome. And that's why we're here live, right? It's to talk in private chat if you want, or post in the chat, or connect over Facebook, private messenger. So what do you want as far as your specific living situation now? You've talked about being around her is tough, right? So have you delineated any kind of schedule or boundaries around physical space, like literally seeing her and being around her, you know, instead of just being a roommate and seeing what happens and kind of waiting for her? What do you want? What do you feel like?
I definitely feel more of a structured schedule is needed at this point, because there's been times where, you know, last minute she'd, you know, take her kids to her parents' house, which is fine. And I choose to, you know, stay away from that situation. Her family knows the situation, what's going on. But you know, what we've kind of been going through here has been just kind of spur of the moment. What's going to happen next? Try to adjust to each other's schedules. And it's just not working. And we actually did discuss a schedule last night, a tentative schedule anyway, a couple nights a week, every other weekend. And yeah, it's something we're going to have to adhere to keep my sanity for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Good. Kent, I'm going to press pause for a moment. That's really good. That's going to segue us to, so Kent, and I'm speaking out and just to every man watching this right now and every man on here. There are lots of men I see on here that are in this spot right now where we had to get used to fucking pulling the card our own self, right? And not just kind of waiting for the next thing in life to happen, including how often do we want to see her at this point? Okay, so being a husband is different than being a separated husband. And so that day-to-day doesn't look the same, even though maybe it feels like hard or it's change. Like change is going to take some effort. It's going to take some headway here. It's going to take maybe asking other men that have been through this. So other men that are on here, I want to ask you to jump on in a second and maybe share, and please do share what it's been like to go from husband to separated husband and how you delineated your own self and time around her. Okay, so I'm going to ask you in a moment. Cynthia, I want to ask you as well. This looks a lot like the pie piece we're going to get into today, the third piece of the pie, which is around leadership, right? And if it's there, and we'll talk more about this today. And so if if there's a vacuum of leadership, and I went through this, Kent just said this as well. I know there's lots of men on here that have kind of been on their heels or on the back foot, and she has felt that vacuum of leadership. So she's stepped into that, and now she wants space, or now we're separated. So it's almost like we're waiting for her to delineate time. But what really ends up happening that I see a ton is she says, let's be friends, and let's do all the same family stuff, and let's just like be roommates together. And she seems to be okay now just being around each other a lot. And it's really tough for the guy. And we now have to step forward and lead, even though we weren't before. So give me some feedback, if you would, please, on a woman's point of view from that space of, maybe she's done grieving and she's ready to move on, which we talked about on yesterday's show. And now she's like, oh, let's be around each other even more and be friends and be roommates. And for us, it's like we're totally in a different spot as a man. So what's a woman going through? And I'd love for you to talk about that piece of the pie if you like, please. And then I'd love for other men to share that have been through this time and have delineated space and time while you're separated or while you're taking space. So Cynthia, please, what are your thoughts on what she's going through when it seems like she's fine being friends and being around us all this time?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to that, but I do want to offer that one of the layers is she wants to be around you because she does appreciate your masculine energy, and she feels safe now because she's kind of compartmentalized it, that it won't be, lover energy. So she can kind of appreciate you as a man with knowing that, romance is not a part of it. And that's really important for a woman to feel gratitude and feel that incredible golden energy from the men in her life. The issue with that is it's always going to feel unfair. It's always going to feel like she's sourcing something from you that's there's nothing in return for that, right? So it can either be just an appreciation of, no matter what's happened in the past, here's a woman who appreciates my presence and the space I hold. And if there is no container around this relationship, if there is no leadership, she is going to continue to use your energy to kind of source in herself some of her purpose as a feminine energy. She's going to tap into it as a way to feel like she's okay, that, she's an acceptable human being, that she has beauty in her, that she's safe because there are men in her life. And again, that's okay, but it's just going to lead down a road, I think, where she's not finding that in other avenues, not finding that for herself, and continuing to kind of lean on you and ask for you to do that, and then be resentful if you're not just happy to be, the non-lover energetic presence in her life that she can feel more confident around, because on her own, she's not feeling that way.
Yeah, Cynthia, what you said there toward the end of she'll start to feel resentful, and I'll add, she'll start to feel resentful if we don't lead and delineate that time. If we just kind of go with the flow and we act kind of butthurt when we see her in the kitchen and we have a chip on our shoulder and we don't stand up for our own self and lead in a calm way. Like, for instance, okay, so I want to open up to a man that's actually been through this, definitely, and I want to honor our men that are here today. So, gentlemen, I want you to please unmute yourself. I'll just wait until someone unmutes themselves that wants to jump in, who's been in that space, okay, and who has a healthy example, healthy meaning hopefully positive focused, guys, right? Positively focused short story about you being in that space of separation and delineating time around her and how that's been beneficial for you. Let's see how long it takes. I wonder how long it'll take for someone to unmute themselves. I know there's gentlemen on here that have been through this.
Yeah, I can jump in if you like, Jeff.
Yeah, Iain, please.
So much of Kent's stories feels like a mirror to myself in a lot of ways. And I think I'm not much further down the line, but certainly there's some things that I've done that you're talking about in that I feel is leadership and was important for me to get settled out, which was getting a timetable, just getting a calendar, putting it down. So, right, this is your week, this is my week, and we'll do the changeover on this day, and setting out the next sort of 2 months. And we started off a little bit toing and froing. And I say my advice, I think the best thing you can do there is get it out and lead in that sense. Say, right, okay, this we can do this week, this for me, this week's for you, and we'll do a changeover. And set your boundaries. And when you're doing the changeover as well, also during the week, try and keep things separate as well. Most for your own health, mental health, because I think seeing your partner again, as you said before, will bring back a hangover effect for the next 1 or 2 or 3 days, which if you're in the middle of the week, it'll completely throw your week off as well, again, because you'll have the hangover effect from the Sunday when you've done the changeover, and then you see again on the Wednesday or the Thursday, and you've got another couple of days, and that's just your week again gone.
Yeah. So Iain, thank you for jumping in. And can I ask you a question about that? Can I challenge you a little bit? Is that all right?
Sure.
Well, what about if she comes to you and says, well, I'd like to be friends though, and I'd like to keep more of a connection with you, right? So I'm asking because what is your nut? What is your boundary in this thing called separation? You know, what do you lean on within your own self of, well, why? Why are you doing that? What if she asks you about that? What might you say?
Well, again, I think I'd ask her why. What does she mean by friends? I mean, what? Because communication is obviously down to pretty much nil now, apart from if we're talking about the kids. And I think at the moment, I'd like to know more behind that question, because if the initial request from her was to have space and independence, now she's asking to be friends, then for me at the moment, it's me finding my space and independence. And I think it's something I'd put off for a later date, certainly.
Oh, I love that. I love that your initial intention was to be curious, to be more curious and not just fire off some kind of defensive answer necessarily, right? So I love that. Very cool. So Cynthia, I'd love for you to unmute yourself. So if Iain says, well, you asked for space before, and now it seems like you're wanting to be friends. So I'm curious, tell me what's underneath that for you. What would be a level 1? So Cynthia and I talk about level 1, 2, 3, and level 1 is just the symptomatic response, just kind of the knee-jerk response. Level 2 is what's underneath that, right? Really the fear or the want. And level 3 is generally old wounds or old patterns or old stories that we've had maybe our entire lives. Okay? So Cynthia, for the sake of the men on here today, because I know other men have already put in the chat that same for me, same situation for me, right? Because women generally grieve and then leave, and that's when the man starts to grieve. So what might be a level 1 response? And I'd like you to follow up. Like, I know Iain's in the thick of this right now, and I'm not trying to make it too hard on Iain and put him on the spot too much here. But what might be a level 1 response, Cynthia, that the men might hear so we can take a step forward into how he can handle this situation, please?
Well, at first I wanted to mention Joseph commented to Iain saying, hey, I never thought about that, but you're spot on. I go through that hangover effect every time. The level 1 response, I don't know what to say that she would exactly come out of her mouth, but what you're going to feel is defensiveness. And that is because as a woman, you are you are always calculating how much masculine presence you have in your life. And because it's safety and it's important. And you're very aware if you're going to lose all of that energy and what that's going to feel like. So her response to your question is probably at a level 1 going to be defensive, because it's going to click in onto, and this is not a malicious thing, but she knows that she's kind of sourcing a sense of like she's going to be okay by being friends with you. She knows that if you're friends, she won't feel any shame or, self-hatred for ending the relationship. She knows that if you're friends with her and you accept her, that she's kind of safe in the world because you'll still be somewhat of a protector for her. And she knows she has a level of safety with you. And again, I think that's human nature. And I think that's why you as men probably feel such a pull and confusion of how to show up, because you're feeling the ask beneath her saying, I want to be friends.
Yeah. I love what you just said there. So let me segue that right into, thank you, Iain. I'll press pause. I appreciate it. And I don't know if there's a question. I want to go right into this piece of the pie, Cynthia, that you talked about, that you and I spoke about this morning. The next piece of the woman's pie we're sharing this week. We're developing this week. And when a woman needs these energies within her life, either she's going to get them from you or from herself or from some other place, which may be some other relationship, which may be some other man. So we want to understand, number one, what a woman's wanting, so we can have frame in ourselves, so we're not confused. Like, this is so we have knowledge here, gentlemen, so we're wiser in the world and relationship. Okay, so the next step here, Cynthia, was purpose, or is purpose, and leadership in her life so that she can feel more in flow. So she feels a container within herself so that she can be more feminine. Okay, so if we aren't offering leadership, she needs to create it for herself so that she can flow within the feminine within her life in some capacity. All right, so if we're not offering the leadership and the container, okay, she either has to do that for herself, or she's going to find that some other place in the world, because she knows she's going to have to function in her career as a mother in the world. If she's going to go find another place to live, she's going to have some kind of container if that's not being offered to her. So that's what I'm hearing. So tell us more, please, about this, the third piece of the pie, if you would. And I'll take some notes as you talk, how you said that this is leadership in her life, and she wants to know that she can be herself. Tell us more about that, please.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Jeff, that a woman knows that if this is not going to be around her and the men in her life, she's going to have to do it all on her own. And it is, I would say, even as a woman who does all her own self work, I can struggle being in flow and feeling in the beauty of what is femininity just within my own container. That sometimes feels very difficult. So she is in appreciation of just who you are because you're holding some of that space. And the more you hold it, even though she might feel like, she wants the boundaries her way, like Kent was saying, you are truly serving her in this new kind of relationship by creating containers and structures. You really are inviting her, we are no longer partners, and yet, you have a purpose in this world as a woman, and you are allowed to be in femininity and flow, even if it's not in the container of romantic interactions.
So you are serving her by creating this container in a healthy way of, we're not just going to have this, I'll see you around, we're roommates, right? So you are creating a container. So again, I want to point this out, guys, right? If we're on our heels and on our back foot, that's not giving her a container. So even if we're friends and all that, and we think, oh, I still want to see her, which is a needy way of wanting to be around her, that's still not container. So guess what? She's going to go find masculine container elsewhere. Just us being around and being friends is not masculine container. Okay, so don't mistakenly think just because you're there that's container. That's not the case. Okay, the opposite is true. Like Iain was saying, okay, this is what I would like moving forward, and here's why. Here's the positive vision for myself, for our family, and for my adventure and my battle in the world. Right? And that's what's actually going to allow her to respect you. And a woman must respect you in order to be attracted to you. Okay, and it has to be attracted to you in order to be in love with you, to offer her the possibility of even wanting to be back with you. She must respect you. And if I'm just back here being a friend and she comes and goes, and half the time I've got a chip on my shoulder because this is really, really painful, she's going to think like, man, this guy is just like a little boy around here. Half the time he's pissed off. He's not really sending any intention in the world. He just feels like flow. Like doesn't feel like anything solid. Yeah, Cynthia, is that fair to say?
Yes, and it makes total sense to me that little boy would come out because you are feeling a deeper ask from her, that deeper ask of the feminine, and that is really frustrating. You feel what she's wanting, and it's kind of like, well, what the fuck? Like, I was here in relationship with you, and now you don't want that. So it really is recognizing that you feel a deeper ask on her part, but knowing that it's you get to serve in the way that you know is best for the space between you, and you get to serve in the power of who you are in your most golden and grounded energy. And that is a gift to her. That is a gift to everyone around you. And thank you for being so aware of the hidden asks. That takes a great deal of presence. And I think the people who move our culture and our society forward in the world are the ones who are like, I'm aware of what's going on beneath the surface, and I'm being present and purposeful with that.
So cool. So cool. There's a man on here today that I've spoken with one-on-one who privately chatted me at the beginning, and he said he's available to talk today, who's in a really, I believe, still tough spot. And I'm trying not to use last names, okay? So his name's Jason. He had a big Ohio State shirt on when I talked to him with him last time, you know? So, Jason, are you open to come on and share your tough spot? I think, did he just bounce off? There you are. Okay, there you are, Jason. Yeah, please come on and share your spot for 30 seconds if you would, and ask Cynthia a question about these, I'll just call it hidden agendas, this hidden ask, okay, that she has, that she's maybe not aware of. And I know, Jason, you're kind of in this bouncing back and forth space. So, update us, please, and ask a question. I'd love it.
Sure. So cut me off if I go long. 30 seconds. Here we go. So the 3-month anniversary of space and total cutoff, almost all communication was via text. So I really bought into the constructs that you guys teach, and I really disengaged. And I just tried to work on myself and didn't bother her, and never initiated anything. And we only did logistics about the kids for 3 months. On the 3-month anniversary of that, I get a text that says, want to come over and do it? And I'm stunned and floored and said yes, whatever. And 7 days of acting like we are, dating for the first time ever. And like that night together, wake up at 4:30 and she's not here. And I get the message the next day, yeah, I just wanted to sleep in my own bed. She's been in an apartment for 3 weeks, and we need to slow down. And I said, okay, I told you that I know this is going to take time. Both of us need to find our happy place in order for us to be happy together. So that's going to take some work. And we had some really great, deep conversations during the week. And then I got really nasty, angry, blaming texts all that night. And so I just disengaged and said, sounds like you're in a tough place. And, since then we've texted very little because I'm just trying to go back to that place where I'm not overwhelming or asking for much. So that's where we are now. So the question is, when I think about your stair steps, I think her first step is sex. And so it's like, it's a little bit upside down. And she even said, we've never had a problem here. But she acknowledges there's a problem in an emotional or intellectual conversation way. And those are the blocking elements to rekindling the relationship. And so now it's like, what do I do next? How do I lead? Or do I just wait? I guess is the question.
Yeah, so I have certain questions, but I'd love to actually throw it over to Cynthia first. So Cynthia, do you have a clarifying question for Jason, or what would you do in a conversation with him right this moment, please?
Thank you so much, Jason, for sharing that. I guess my clarifying question is, in your gut right now, what was do you think her place of like feeling just vulnerable in her life or herself, or what was going on? Was she right before she's like, okay, I'm going to come over and let's do it?
So probably pretty high vulnerability, because she, was working on quitting her job and trying to find something else. She's living alone and is lonely. And so, when I got there, we hugged for like 5 minutes and just stood kind of in the doorway. And then it wasn't like it wasn't graphic. It was sweet. And we talked for a long time. We talked a lot during that week. And so she even said to me at one point, I think this is going to work out. I think we can do this. I just have to work on myself. And I have to get to a place where I'm happy with who I am. And she's talked about, accomplishing nothing. She's almost 40, and that's really bothering her. And she's just been a mom. These are her words, not mine. I've never told her, you got to stay at home and raise these kids. She's always been happier at work. But it's now a panic state. I feel like I have nothing to show for my life. And so, trying to help her. So I said, if you want my help, I'm happy to help. So she's been sending me her resume. I've been helping her figure it out. She's been sending me jobs for input. So she's leaning in, and I'm worried about leading too much too soon, or just letting her connect and contact. I don't know how much to support her because it's still in this weird state.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And thank you for, you are helping her in this panic state. That does help me understand that when she allows herself to be very vulnerable and she doesn't feel like she has the container of her job or her identity or her role, that she very much appreciates your presence and leaning up against you like a big redwood tree. And then she kind of, freaks out about that. And maybe she finds something that then makes her feel more empowered that she can stand on. And she's like, oh, okay, I don't need that. I don't need that. So I can feel like the push-pull that you're experiencing. When you can assist her with job things, what kind of energy do you feel from her in return?
Yeah, so she's said thank you. And we had tentatively set up a a lunch hangout, and she canceled it yesterday. And so, I'm tired. Don't really want you to come over, but thanks for reading my resume. And then I've replied to each job that she sent, said, here's my thoughts and here's how I think you fit. And a lot of positive praise to say, hey, this resume looks phenomenal. I made a couple edits. Or that job seems sketchy because of this, you deserve better. And I'm trying to give her feedback by layering in, compliments and support as well. So it's going well. And then I tried to ask a leading type of statement that said, instead of asking, hey, are we going to hang out this week? Or are we going to reschedule our lunch? I just said, I'd really like to hang out with you this week. Let me know if that's something that you can do. And she said, yeah, maybe tomorrow. So there's always, it's not negative right now. It's not as positive as it was. It's cautious, I think.
Sure. Well, again, I just feel the groundedness and the warrior in you who's so willing to, even in this place of uncertainty, be the tip of the spear for her. And I'm interested for Jeff's feedback on that. From a woman's perspective, sure, right now she's looking for like real life safety and container and a job, but really what she's looking for is identity. So thank you for, reassuring her like, hey, you're worth more than this. I think that's another gift that men give women is, upholding, here's your worth, hold on to that. Feedback to her just about her character, not just in the work setting. Like, you are an awesome person. You're creative. You make a difference wherever you are. Whatever her strengths are that are not just in the workplace that you can honor and illuminate right now. To me, that seems like what her hunger is in the moment, and something that would make her feel less vulnerable even than the real life job, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. I creativity feedback, I think is really important. She's talked about wanting to write and wanting to do certain types of art as a profession, and that's hard because there's not a lot of pay, there's not a lot of steady jobs in that, and so she knows she needs the income. But supporting that pursuit for her, I think, would be very fulfilling because she's actually very good at it. She just she's been in a rough place for the last 2 years to actually execute on that as a career. So I really appreciate that insight, because that's dead on.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, very cool. So I love everything that Cynthia said, and that's actually great feedback from men that are wondering, well, even though we're separated or we don't talk very often, how can I get her to know and feel this new man that I'm becoming? And everything Cynthia said there, the gentleman I work with in Taiwan, I was just talking with him literally last night. 7 p.m. last night for me is 9 a.m. the next morning for him as he goes to work in Taiwan. And I'm having him strategically pick out one thing of her character, just like Cynthia said, that he can appreciate and that he can compliment. Not so much romantically, but of her character and the behavior and the way she shows up and her, let's say, integrity and values in the world. Okay, then you pick one thing at a time and maybe do that once a week, or 2 times a week at most, or the once a week when you exchange the kids, this kind of a thing. Okay, so that's just the man you want to be. The man you want to be is to honor her and other people for their positive values. So Jason, I want to ask, by the way, I'm going to share really fast here and then I'll ask you a question, Jason. I pulled this quote from Hold On to Your Nuts this morning, and a couple things I want to point out. I won't read all these right this second, but it talks about, to develop your own nuts, start by asking yourself tough questions to discover where you've sold yourself out in the past. So Jason, I want to ask you, where do you feel you've sold yourself out? And your own unresolved issues will be your first challenge and the first test of your newly acquired nuts. Okay. So where do you feel, Jason, in the past with her that you've sold yourself out? Or where do you feel is an unresolved issue in your own self that you have trouble around with boundaries?
So it's the quintessential nice guy tendencies, just sacrificing what I love and what I want and the time for myself, and just always smothering and being needy and being unhappy with that, and not pursuing the things I want because I was afraid that I would upset her. And so, the hard part about last weekend was the Saturday was the angry texting, and I had a tea time on Sunday, and Sunday morning she texted me and said, I'm exhausted and I can't do the kids today, right? So I picked them up even though it was her weekend, I wondered if that's a really hard topic, right? It's she's in a really bad place and she's stressed because she had just quit her job and didn't know where she's going to get her income from, and was vulnerable and angry from the week before. And so I just decided, I actually told her, we got into a little bit of a text fight, and I wasn't mean. I just was trying to be stern about, this is my time and I've got plans. And I finally said, you know what, it sounds like you're in a bad place. I'll come get him. And I did, because kind of the rule of thumb is, the kids come before everything else, right? Like don't let it wear on them. So, but I'm curious as to whether that was the right or the wrong decision given the circumstance.
That's a good question. So I'll answer that straight away. So best case scenario, Jason, is that we don't get into texting exchange when we're still working it out in our mind. Okay, right? So like, don't try to flush out stuff with her when it's not in a good space, especially over text. I mean, you want to be either talking on the phone if there's something you really need to confirm, or in person, but over text is like the worst place to flush something out is over text. Okay. So optimally, what I would have done is think, what's the number one priority here? So to answer your other question, should you uphold your boundaries around when it's her time? Yes. However, and Cynthia and I dealt with this in the school system, we're behavioral therapists, and you have to understand what's the number one thing that we are working on. We meaning, like, what's the relationship right now? Okay. Is it completely separated? Is it, every man has a little different situation with what's really going on in the relationship. And so Jason, for you just had this connection. Then she kind of had this explosive avoidant rebound, like rubber band rebound, boomerang rebound. And now she's saying, I can't handle the kids, which is a theme for her. Like her abandonment and her avoidance includes the kids. She just like throws her hands up. Okay. So the number one thing for you, like you said, is to take care of the kids. So I'm not here to chastise you, Jason. I know you did your best and I honor you. But to answer your question, you don't want to be trying to figure that out over fucking text with her live. Okay, so it's a matter of like taking your fingers off the phone, thinking about what's the most important thing, and then making a decision. So it doesn't, because right now you feel, right, it feels like you kind of tried to stand up for yourself and then you backed off of it. Right, Jason?
Yeah, that's right. And, she will not engage via the phone. The 90% of the communication is via text, because she's adopted the MO of waiting 20 to 40 minutes to reply, even if we're actively in a conversation. But I've tried to call her earlier in this process, and it'll go to voicemail and I'll get a text.
Right. Okay. So, but you control what your thumbs do on your phone, right?
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Okay. And so a bigger question that, we're running out of time here, and I also want to honor, I saw Walters, you've had your hand up for a while, and I appreciate you having your hand up. I'd love for you to ask your question, Walters, either in the chat or in the forum, and I'd love to get to you tomorrow, so I apologize for that. And I want to honor every man that's here, definitely. So Jason, here's the cliffhanger And I'm happy to pick this up, again tomorrow or one-on-one. If you want to talk about this one-on-one or on the forum, like definitely. And we've talked, Jason, that this is the beginning of a long journey, right? It's the beginning of a trek of climbing the mountains and forging through the swamps here. So one thing I want to ask you to write as homework is, what type of relationship do I want to have with her right now? So in this chapter of life, okay, being real about this chapter of life, what's the relationship I want to have with her right now? Do I want to be the call up fuck buddy? Maybe you do. Do I want to be sucked into text fighting? Do I want to be constantly challenged about who's watching the kids? Okay, and what to do about these things is another level of conversation that we can have, Jason, right? And so, but these are questions you have to ask yourself first. You have to know what you want first. So I'm going to go back to these nuts really fast. Nuts define you as a man, those things that you're committed to. And commitments make life easier by eliminating doubt. But if you repeatedly compromise your nuts, it will piss you off. It will piss you off because you know that you're not standing up for yourself. Okay, if we go farther past our boundaries, we end up getting ragingly pissed off, which that was my MO, or we collapse and cave in on ourselves and we become a doormat. And guess what? Both of those women hate. It terrifies women when we explode and they don't want to be around that. They won't feel safe. They won't feel sexual. Or if we're a doormat and collapse in on ourselves, they won't respect us. Okay, neither one of those are good. And so the answer is, well, where did things start to cross my boundary? And how, right, is how we learn in the show, and that's for another time. How we stand up for ourselves in a healthy way is we've talked about the don't be a tool is the first piece that comes to mind, right? And not being sucked into text fighting and understanding what's the number one thing. If the number one thing is the kids, okay, then my nut is that number one, I take care of my children, right? And so your nut can't be your golfing buddies at this time, even though that's important to you. Our nuts have to have priorities when we're in the fucking storm. It's easy to say oh yeah, here's my 10, nuts, and I go play, I do poker night and I go play with my, that's cool. But when there's 3 little kids and, there's other gigantic responsibilities in life, our nuts have to shift. And that's okay. That's called real. It's called real life, and that's okay, right? So Jason, it sounds to me like you did well trying to stand up for yourself. I get that. Not fighting. They're it wasn't a big blowout fight. You didn't shame her. You didn't blow up the bridge. That's great. And what I'm seeing for you, man, is there's going to be lots of scaffolding of small boundaries. Okay. And then there's going to be you having to understand what you want. Am I okay her just swinging and being the fuck buddy? Okay. And I'll say one last thing is, it's hard to ask her for something when she doesn't want to be around you. Okay. So you got to take a step back, be the calm, confident man that we've talked about on the show all the time, right? Maybe you engage her once a week, like we're talking about, in a healthy way, until she wants you to step closer to her. Okay. And if she doesn't want you, there's really no, let's say, leverage for you to ask her for anything. Okay. And so there's a natural in breath and out breath. There's a natural ebb and flow to relationships that are on the rocks. Okay. And that's why we do one-on-one coaching, guys, to walk you through this stuff. And happy to talk about it on the show, but we're over time here today. That was a fucking cliffhanger, Cynthia. And I thank you, Walters. I appreciate you being here, and every man that's here. I want to go through names really fast, and Cynthia will close the show. I'll show 2 minutes of one of these kick-ass inspirational videos. It's called Don't Chase That Thing. Decide what you want. It's about values and boundaries from Robert Downey Jr. It's the segment I'm going to show is 2 minutes. I'll use that after. And Cynthia, I want to honor our men here today. So who do you see in our participant section, Cynthia?
Oh my gosh. Well, Walters, thank you for being here. I hope you can come back tomorrow or Friday. And Dennis, you're here. Thank you. Hossein is here. Harry, Pat, and Joseph. Jason is here. Rob, Andy, Hans. It's so good to see you. Kent, I really appreciate you sharing more of your story as you've been moving on along this journey. And Patrick, Jason, thank you so much for sharing. Iain, thank you for your input. It makes an enormous difference to have your voice here. I truly, truly appreciate it every day in every way.
Fantastic. I agree with Cynthia completely. I love that you guys come here to share with us, and this helps me. This helps me and Cynthia work on our own stuff as well, right, guys? Like, you know, we're all in this together. It's like nobody's perfect over here. I'm not going to ever claim that. And I see a couple guys smiling in the video right now, like, yeah, just got his shit too. We know how that works. You guys are phenomenal. I love you guys. This has been the C Note Show, brought to you by Great Men Move Mountains and GreatMenMoveMountains.com. If you're not a part of our free private Facebook group yet, go to GreatMenMoveMountains.com/Facebook and punch in your information, and we have to personally invite you in, or another man that's in there can invite you in, and then we've got to give you the thumbs up. So every man that's in there has been personally invited. All right, love you guys here today. Thank you for being here. We'll be here at 11 a.m. tomorrow Mountain Time, just like every Monday through Friday. You guys are phenomenal. So cool. I'm going to share 2 minutes of this Robert Downey Jr. awesome clip right now.
Always know what your action is, because then when you come in the morning confident, or when you come in the morning and you can't hit your ass with both hands, you know what to do. Just boil down what it is you're doing, whether there's a camera around or just what am I doing today. Today I'm showing up and I'm trying to be honest and also to listen and learn. I think part of the reason I'm still so interested, not just in life, but also, you know, getting to do what I do, is I'm a fan. I love movies. I love creativity. I love music. I love culture. And the fact that I actually have a place in it while I'm observing it and digging it is like, it's an honor.
This concept of things just sort of falling into place, I'm a big believer in that too.
Yeah.
What is that though? Is that you getting out of your own way? Like what is that? Isn't
that 70% of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say it's 70% maintenance of what can I do to do my part to stay out of the way. And then the other part, I always think of it as like this little super thin, invisible thread. But you can feel the tug, and you just you have to be really gentle, and you have to pause when agitated, and you have to go for it when you go, like, there's 4 walls in here, which one has the map behind it? It's that one. And you knock down the wall and it's there. You know? Half the stuff that I've been able to do right in my creative life are principles that I learned on the mat with my seafood. Guard your center. Keep your eye on the lead elbow. Get to the blind side. Half the time, if I would be in a critical artistic situation, I would just say, because Wing Chun problems are life problems are Wing Chun problems, and I would just go back to how did this kind of relate to...
30 years he has struggled with a dangerous drug addiction that nearly destroyed him, and today he says he's clean, he's in love, and so by the time you're in prison, that's not rock bottom for you?
Nope.
Nope.
No. It coincided with my recovery. Oh. And the two things just somehow or other seemed to lock in. When it locked in with this, it was an apprenticeship. And it was an apprenticeship that was contingent on me being in a certain headspace.
You know, because you can reach out for help in kind of a half-assed way, and you'll get it, and you won't take advantage of it. You know, it's not that difficult to overcome these seemingly ghastly problems. What's hard is to decide.
What's hard is to decide. What's hard is to decide what are your nuts, what are you willing to do, and you guys have decided to show up here every day. I love you guys. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. I'ma tell you about a woman who's cold as tundra with some frozen eyes. I can tell by the way she